This is Bob Avakian with an important message. 2025, a new year, profound new challenges, and a profoundly positive way forward in the face of very real horror. Point 1. Trump 2025 is not just another administration coming into office. This is fascism, the undisguised dictatorship of this system of capitalism imperialism in the world's most powerful capitalist imperialist country, openly and aggressively oppressive and repressive, a fascism fueled by anti-scientific and Christian fundamentalist lunacy, moving to forcibly impose its racist, immigrant persecuting, woman and LGBT hating MAGA madness, determined to unleash unbridled capitalist plunder and naked imperialist expansionism, prepared to violently crush any opposition or resistance. Contrary to what we are constantly told, it was not the American people who chose this fascism. There is not one undivided American people. There are two countries within this country. And the two countries within this country, in a real sense, is an extension of a fundamental division that has existed since the beginning of the so-called United States of America, with its foundation in slavery and genocide. A division which has never really been resolved throughout the history of this country, not through the Civil War in the 1860s, and not through changes that were brought about through the 1960s and in the years following. As I have said before, there is a direct line from the pro-slavery Confederacy at the time of the Civil War to the fascism of today, with its determination to make America once again openly, aggressively white supremacist, male supremacist, and anti-LGBT people. All this is why, as I have emphasized in my social media message number 111, this is not a time for accepting this Trump MAGA fascism as legitimate and staying within the confines of how things work under this system, as Democratic Party heads and other mainstream ruling class representatives are urging people to do. It is not a time for turning inward and attempting to take care of self as the juggernaut of Trump MAGA fascism gains momentum and crushes masses of people. This is a time for reaching out to all the others who feel the same outrage at Trump MAGA fascism. A time for collective action and self-sacrificing struggle for the greater good of defeating this fascism. This is a time for uniting all who can be united in determined struggle against this fascism, beginning now, before this fascist rule is fully consolidated, and in order to prevent it from being fully consolidated. A movement aiming to become so massive and powerful that it creates a profound political crisis such that Trump cannot govern the country and implement his fascist program. Point 2. This fascism was spawned by this system of capitalism imperialism, a system which by its very nature perpetrates continuing horrors on a level far beyond what even most informed people have been led to believe. At Revcom.us, the American Crime Series examines 100 of the massive, unspeakable atrocities committed by the dominant forces in this country, from the very beginning and down to today. And through my social media messages, as well as Revcom.us and the YouTube RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, there is continuing scientific analysis of the basic nature and dynamics of the system of capitalism imperialism that rules in this country and dominates in the world as a whole. Why this system cannot be reformed, but must be thoroughly abolished through an actual revolution. Why this is a rare time when this revolution is not only urgently necessary, but is more possible. How this revolution can lead to a fundamentally different and much better system, and how to go about seizing the time to actually work for this revolution in the face of all the real and continually increasing horrors. The Trump MAGA fascism that is now moving to take power, having arisen out of the soil of this whole system and the whole history of this country, will unleash all this horror more fully and in more blatant ways, while at the same time, the basic nature and dynamics of this system as a whole are subjecting the masses of humanity to terrible suffering, destroying the environment at an accelerating rate, and heightening the danger of all-out war between the U.S. and its rivals in Russia and China, all nuclear-armed imperialist powers. What I have sharply stated before stands out all the more urgently now. We can no longer afford to allow these imperialists to dominate the world and to determine the destiny of humanity. They need to be overthrown as quickly as possible. Point 3. There is a whole new way to live with a fundamentally different system. There is no good reason why the world has to be the way it is, with all its very real horrors. There is no good reason why, beyond the massive death and destruction of World War II, in the time since that war ended in 1945, more than 500 million children have needlessly died from starvation and preventable disease, fundamentally because of the way the world, and in particular the poorer countries in the world, have been dominated by capitalism imperialism, with the USA the #1 imperialist predator. There is no good reason why anyone, anywhere in the world, should go hungry or be without decent housing, health care, and other basic necessities, or live in constant fear of going without these necessities. No good reason for the endless wars and accelerating destruction of the environment, for which this system is fundamentally responsible. No good reason why the dominant culture and ways of thinking should serve to reinforce murderously oppressive relations, while drilling into people's heads the ridiculous notion that there is no positive alternative to all this. No good reason why the long night continues in which human society has been divided into masters and slaves, and the masses of humanity have been lashed, beaten, raped, slaughtered, shackled, and shrouded in ignorance and misery. There is no good reason for all this, but there is one basic reason: the fact that the world and the masses of humanity are still forced to exist under the domination of this system of capitalism imperialism. This system is completely absurd, criminally, monstrously absurd, and completely outmoded, long past its expiration date, past the time when it can lead to anything positive for humanity. And on the contrary, it stands as the direct barrier to the emancipation of humanity from all this madness, atrocity, and unnecessary suffering. The rise of fascism in many other countries, as well as in the US itself, is a glaring sign of the thoroughly outmoded nature of this system and the heightened danger it poses to humanity as a whole. We are now at the point where it is more and more urgently necessary to move beyond this whole monstrous system, beyond a situation where people are forced to struggle just for individual survival, with everyone compelled to be in competition and conflict with others, and the masses of people everywhere are chained down by outmoded oppressive relations, while the future and the very existence of humanity is increasingly endangered. And it is possible now to move beyond all this. A whole different way of living is possible. A whole different way to organize society, with a radically different economic foundation and political system, emancipating relations among people, and an uplifting culture. All of this oriented to meeting the basic needs and fulfilling the highest interests of the masses of people. This is set forth in both a sweeping and concrete way in the Constitution for the New Socialist Republic in North America, which I have written. Summaries of basic points in this Constitution, shining a light on the truly emancipating way we could be living, are laid out in the Declaration. We need and we demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally different system. This Declaration, as well as the Constitution for the New Socialist Republic in North America, is available at revcom.us. Becoming part of the organized ranks of revolutionaries taking up the challenge of making this real, joining with the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity, working actively and urgently for this revolution, putting our lives on the line not for ourselves alone or for a narrow circle or clique, but for the emancipation of humanity. That is something truly worth living for and dedicating your life to. Point 4, the final crucial point. Breaking beyond the confines of this system, breaking the stranglehold of its murderous enforcers. Revolution is not only urgently needed, it is possible. The fact that this system in this country has taken the extreme expression of bringing a fascist regime to power, this is a manifestation of the thoroughly rotten and illegitimate nature of this system as a whole, and the fact that the ruling class in this country can no longer rule in the way it has for generations as a unified ruling class. Of course, the Democratic Party will try to work with and get everyone to accept Trump MAGA fascism in order to maintain the stability of the rule of this monstrous system, which has given rise to this fascism along with all its other atrocities. But the reality is that contradictions and conflicts within this country and in the world overall will continue to cause major disruptions and eruptions, striking at the stability of this system. And amidst the increasing intense situation, a growing, conscious, dedicated, and determined revolutionary force of thousands can become tempered and steeled on a scientific basis, enabled to forge the means to work through all the difficult challenges, to prepare the basis and lead masses in the millions for the emancipating revolution that is necessary in order to put an end to this madness and bring something much better into being. This is a rare time when revolution has become more possible. And this rare time must not be squandered, wasted, and thrown away. It must be actively and urgently seized on to bring about a truly emancipating revolution. The outcome of this rare time can't be left to the brutal enforcers of this system in one camp or another, or to any force which cannot or will not look beyond and lead people beyond the confines of an oppressive system in one form or another. There must be, and there can be, an organized force of thousands in a position to lead millions to take this where it needs to go, to an actual emancipating revolution. With such an organized revolutionary force, it is possible to have a growing impact on all of society, changing the terms of how masses of people see things and how every institution has to respond. With thousands organized into the ranks of the revolution, millions can be won to revolution. And with millions won to revolution, there could be a real possibility for this revolution to win. The basic approach to working for this revolution is set forth in important documents at revcom.us, including revolution, building up the basis to go for the whole thing with a real chance to win, strategic orientation, and practical approach. People in all parts of the country, in continually and rapidly growing numbers, need to join the organized revolutionary forces working consistently to carry out this basic strategic approach to bringing about this revolution. In concluding, in light of the urgent need and real possibility for this revolution, I am going to speak to something that has been raised when the prospect of this revolution is brought forward. The claim that in calling for and working to get people involved in this revolution, we are, quote, going to get people killed, unquote. First of all, within this country itself, to take one terrible dimension of things, along with the millions of lives wasted and wounded through mass incarceration, thousands of black people and others have been killed by police in the last number of decades. And this killing by police continues day after day. At the same time, a reasonable estimate is that tens of thousands have died as a result of gang conflicts in the inner cities. And for all of this, once again, this system is ultimately responsible because of the conditions in which it has confined masses of people and the rotten values and putrid culture it has promoted, which poison people's minds and pervert their morality. Huge numbers of people are dying right now all over the world because of the wars, destruction, and deprivation caused by this system of capitalism imperialism. And human civilization as a whole faces the growing danger of outright extinction through nuclear war as well as environmental devastation. This terrible reality and the fact that all this is completely unnecessary is why we urgently need revolution. But as opposed to how this system devalues, demeans, recklessly ruins, and massively destroys the lives of people, we Revcoms, revolutionary communists based on the new communism I have developed, proceed in accordance with the fundamental orientation that of all things in the world, people are most precious. And we are approaching the profoundly and urgently necessary revolution in the most serious and scientifically grounded way. At the same time, there is no getting around the fact that because of the nature of the system we are up against, revolution requires real sacrifice. But once again, people's lives are being sacrificed in massive numbers now, in so many meaningless and truly terrible ways. And we face the very real danger of massive destruction of human life on a far greater scale because of the dictates and as a consequence of the rule of this system we are now forced to live under. We Revcoms are working tirelessly toward the goal of finally putting an end to such monstrous and completely unnecessary ruin and destruction of so many people, here and all over the world. In the interests of humanity as a whole, we are willing and prepared to make the necessary sacrifices and to call on others to make the necessary sacrifices to carry out the revolution that can bring about a liberating leap forward on the road to finally putting an end to all this madness and needless suffering, and to bringing about a world where human beings can, at long last, move beyond the mere struggle for individual survival, as well as the heavy weight of thousands of years of oppressive relations, and can truly thrive as a world community of human beings, proceeding according to fundamental principles of cooperation and capable of being fit caretakers of the earth. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. This whole system is rotten and illegitimate. We need and we demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally different system.